Pascal. You are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild, Haitian in the building, so original. Got the haters catching feelings. Get your hands up to the ceiling and keep them held high, cause St. Louis isn't ready. Forget about it, goodbye. Hold up, we just saying hi. Five somebody, rise up weekdays. Catch us live, somebody, let's go.
Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Pascal Show. Hope you guys are enjoying your Friday, making it wonderful. Okay, I know some of y'all are still wrapping up your day. You're almost done, I swear. The weekend is about to start. I promise you that. But I hope you guys are doing all well, doing great today, and finishing off the week very, very strong, okay? It has been one heck of a week. Let's be real, covering this whole situation that's going on in Moscow, Idaho right now. Obviously, we have been diligently watching, diligently obsessed, focused on Bryan Kohberger. And now this brand new, well, not brand new anymore, but as of the last 48 hours, there has been a probable cause affidavit that has come out to the public. We dove into it. We dived into that mug just the other day. And there's a lot of questions that we got about it. But there's other questions also that are still pending about this case, about this trial that Bryan Kohberger and the rest of the world will be watching. We will be at the edge of our seats wondering, is the knife sheath going to be enough? The other question is, do they actually have the weapon? Do they have this K-bar or not? There's a lot of things that we got to talk about. Many, many questions that are popping off like crazy, as we already know. So we got to get into some things because we got somebody very special coming on with me today. So just sit tight real quick. Before we get into everything and before I introduce a new family member of the show, please hit that like button down below. Send it past 300 likes. Shoot, send it past 400 likes as you guys start to file in, because I know a lot of you guys want to know some information about this. What are we looking? What are we looking down? What alley are we looking down right now? What are we expecting with this trial? Are there going to be some interesting bombshells? Is it just going to be an open close kind of case or not? So please hit that like button down below. Send it past 400 likes. That would really, really mean a lot. Do not forget to crush that subscribe button. I mean, shoot, have you hit the subscribe button, baby? I mean, real talk, have you done it? Because if you haven't, I don't understand, because you're missing the best party in the world right here on the Pascal Show. Crush that subscribe button. It'd be great to have you a part of the Pascal Show family. Anyway, we got to get into these things, babies. We got a lot to talk about. Let's get into it. As we already know, this probable cause affidavit just came out. We have all been, our minds have been spinning on this, scratching our heads, wondering all these different details. We know that this is a heavily redacted affidavit, but there's a lot in there. Trust me, there's a lot of info in here. Okay. So to talk about the affidavit and to kind of walk us through what we might expect with this trial, please welcome our good friend, Danny, on to the show. She has a YouTube channel called Danny on Direct. Thank you so much, Danny, for being here. I really do appreciate it. How you doing, sweetheart?
Well, I'm doing fantastic now that I'm here with you and with your family. It's excellent to be here. And yeah, I'll give you a little bit of a rundown about myself here real quick, and then
Please.
we can get right into an analysis. So I am a licensed attorney both here in Utah and in Arizona. I practice civil law primarily. I have done a couple of defense cases, and I'm just excited to be here with y'all. This actually occurred not too far from where I live. I live about, I want to say, 5 or 6 hours away from where this actually occurred. And to put that in perspective, I spend almost every weekend down in Vegas, and I drive about 6 hours to get there. So not too far from where I live at all. Obviously, the community is devastated. I met the DA up there, Mr. Santa Claus, actually while I was running for Salt Lake County District Attorney here in Utah. And during that run, he was very kind, offered me a lot of suggestions, a lot of great advice from one attorney to another, and obviously as a DA candidate from one to another. So very exciting stuff, and I'm excited to get into it with all of you.
Yeah, again, I really do appreciate you being here. I mean, again, we got a lot of questions, and I know you wax the legalese. Let's just say that you are a working esquire as we speak right now in family law. But of course, we know, or at least I know that you've had your fair share out there in the field of law. So I do appreciate you coming in here and just breaking it down to us laymen's out here, to us average Joes out here that are just trying to scratch our head and try to understand exactly what's going on here and exactly what to expect, right? So let's talk about this affidavit. As you've seen this affidavit, this is a very, to me, eye-opening affidavit. We've been looking at this, talking about this for the past 48 hours, just talking about the details that are in here and all the details that are not in here. So one of the questions I have for you is, why is this redacted so much?
Yeah, so I actually was thinking about that myself. I don't know. We don't know whether or not that 4chan post was actually from the alleged murderer, from our suspect. But my I have two theories. So one is you don't want to prejudice your jury, okay? If there is information in there that is specifically very gruesome or very brutal, it could be prejudicial come trial time. We want to assume that he is innocent until the state can prove that he is guilty. So that may have actually been a redaction that was required by the judge in lieu of giving out that information. That's one theory, is that they don't want to prejudice a potential jury. They know that this is going to end up online. Everyone's going to watch it, even though everyone says that they don't. That's theory one. Theory two, and they may be the same, is that 4chan post where he gives very explicit descriptions of where certain body parts were placed may actually be included within that affidavit. And so as a result, they don't want to I think they actually want to bring in the 4chan post, but where that's going to come down to an evidentiary hearing, I think they just want to leave it out for now. And beyond all of that, the third thing it could be is they just don't want to traumatize the families. It's very devastating to hear some of these things, and some of these things are going to come out in court. They're not going to be entirely sanitized, but it's a desire to meet the needs of educating the public versus prejudicing the jury and offending the victims' families.
Interesting. And now I understand them being very trying to respect the family, not giving out too many details and all that. But there are certain pieces out of here that are not in here. Other testimonies, or at least other pieces of information, like Bethany's perspective is not in here at all. We only
Right.
have basically Dylan's perspective throughout this whole entire thing. And the question I still have is, and I think a lot of us are still wondering, on the Bethany side, because we are going to dip our toe back into the pool of the Dylan drama. With Bethany, it's still a question of why aren't they saying anything from her? Why isn't there anything being said, her perspective? Because I'm sure she heard some
Sure.
things, or maybe she was just completely passed out and didn't hear a doggone thing, and she just happened to be lucky. We don't know, but it just seems very interesting that there's pieces of information in here that are not. There's just holes, and I'm
Right.
wondering, why couldn't they have walked around a little bit closer to filling those holes a little bit more, so that the general public, of course, that get this redacted affidavit can get a little bit more clarity. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I do. And so the best way to think about this is just the probable cause statement. Okay. All they're establishing here with the court is they're saying, look, we have reason to suspect that this is the guy, and we ought to have a chance to prosecute him, right? To prove our case. And so that's all they're doing, is they're giving just enough information for the court to actually charge and to, well, not for the court, but for the state to actually charge him, and then for the court to decide to hold him while they're finishing up and conducting their investigation. It could be that there are more witnesses out there and more information out there that the prosecutor wants to protect. We don't know. We don't know all of the circumstances going on behind the scenes. And I suspect that the reason they waited so long on the arrest, and the reason they were so tight-lipped about this from the very beginning, is because there was this key witness that they needed to defend and protect. And so this is a strategy that you'll see in a lot of cases where the court's not going to deliver its full, especially the prosecutors are not going to deliver their full case in chief. They're just going to issue the probable cause. So if you imagine it, like, let's say Bob and Jill are married, a married couple. Okay, I'm going to give it hypothetical. Bob and Jill are a married couple. Bob has a drinking problem. Bob comes home, beats the crap out of Jill. Okay, cops arrive on the scene. Cops take down statements. They gather as much evidence as is reasonably available at the time. They conduct a quick investigation. They arrest Bob based on that information. They then go and take him to jail. Now, his arrest and his probable cause statement, when the prosecutor goes to bring that probable cause statement, it's going to be that original arrest report, along with a few other details, just enough to meet that probable cause threshold, which is not particularly high, right? This isn't beyond a reasonable doubt. They just have to show that it's reasonable for them to arrest and hold the guy while they're charging and prosecuting.
Interesting. And of course, we're going to talk about evidence and the sheath and all that stuff in just a little bit. But we got to dive a little bit into the Dylan situation right now. I mean, obviously, everyone is. A lot of people have a lot of questions. All right, especially within this affidavit. She says in the affidavit, or according to the affidavit, she says she heard different things. She opened her door to see what was going on multiple times. The third time, this shadowy figure dressed in all black, she could make out bushy eyebrows and eyes, walks right by her, goes out through the sliding glass door. Now, a lot of people, and of course, through fear, she shuts the door shut and then does not make a phone call, not one 911 call, for several hours. A lot of people are wondering why. What that doesn't make sense. The math ain't mathin' with this, right? So I have to ask you, I know this is not a legal question, but what are your thoughts surrounding that? Do you think that this is just pure shock or something else?
Yeah, it's really tough to speculate, and that's essentially what I'm going to be doing here for the next 2 seconds that I give you my thoughts. My speculative ideas are: one, there may be information that the cops are withholding that she did try to reach out and inform the police. Two, it was 4 a.m. The lady's super tired. She's not really paying attention. She could have been thinking she was dreaming. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I have a sleepwalking disorder. And so sometimes if I wake up mid sleepwalk, something may have actually occurred, right? Like my husband will kind of shake me and be like, "Hey, baby, gotta go back to bed." And
Right.
I remember it happening, but I'm so dazed and confused and out of it that to me it was just a dream, right? And I can't really tell, and I'm so tired, I just go back to sleep.
Interesting.
So that could have been the case with her. She could have been awoken, kind of dazed and walking around, and she sees this guy. She's petrified. But then she's like, "Oh, wait a second. Is this a night terror or something?
Right.
What's wrong with me?" And then she just goes back to bed. I think the key point in the affidavit that's most important is that the dog did in fact bark. That is a good dog. Because that was everybody's question. Was the dog barking?
Especially a dog that is very friendly and very sociable. I mean, obviously that dog has been around multiple people. The fact that he knew danger was going on and started barking, yeah, that's a good dog. That's a good dog, and I think the bark caused this bad guy, this monster, to run out that sliding glass door, or at least inspire him to run out as quickly as possible. At least that's my theory too. So you're saying that you sleepwalk.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I sleepwalk. It's a genetic thing, and if anybody else sleepwalks, don't freak out. It's just genetic. There's a little chemical in your brain that goes off when you go to bed, and for some people, that chemical doesn't go off. And what that chemical does is it forces your body to stay in place while you're sleeping. Not all animals have that. A good example is like dolphins. So
Mm,
dolphins will basically sleepwalk their way up to get air while they're sleeping and go back. Same with whales and other mammals. But it's particularly low if you're stressed out. So if this young woman has this kind of disorder, if it's not uncommon to her, I mean, like I said, I'm totally speculating. I don't think that she would intentionally, you know, in that state of fright, go, okay, I'm going to go close and lock the door and not call the police.
right.
That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. At 4 a.m., yeah, she's probably trying to rationalize to herself. And she doesn't say that she heard, I mean, she heard things, right? But she doesn't clearly say, "Oh yeah, I heard people being stabbed." And I go back to this 4chan post because it's just, there's certain things when you hear them that are so detailed that it lends credibility to what is being said. And in that 4chan post, one of the things he says is, well, the other girl screamed, right? And so I had to kill them both quickly. And then that's what motivated him to leave as quickly as he did. And I
Right.
think he left the sheath on accident as a
Oh yeah.
result of that.
He that was the one of the biggest mistakes, and I think that's the reason why he circled back 4 or 5 hours later, because he said, "Oh my God, I left the knife sheath." The biggest. I mean, it's a smart, dumb move, if that makes any sense. It's a smart, dumb guy. It's a dumb, smart guy, however you want to say it,
I
making a very, very big but very huge mistake.
I
Actually
think he
planned
thinks
this at
he's
the
really
first time.
smart. That's what I think it is. I think
Absolutely.
he thinks he's really smart. He planned this out. He had motivations there, and then he just couldn't carry it through because he's not as smart as he actually thinks he is.
So then, okay, real quick, because I have some other information about this Dylan. It's a theory, actually, guys. So before you guys think it's actual scripture, just another theory I'm going to share with you guys here in just a minute. But as far as him walking past her, why didn't he do anything to her? Do you think it was because he was tired? Do you think he was thinking, I'm not going to press my luck, I'm just going to run, type of thing? Would you think he ran out of panic or left out of panic? What are your thoughts on that too, before I go into this?
Yeah, so there's a great model, and I don't mean to shout out another channel, but I was just on Meme Copium last night and we were talking about this. There's actually a model of the house where when you exit that bedroom, there's a door there, and what she says is she had cracked open the door and could see him. I think what happened is as he was coming down the stairs, she was looking up at him, right? So she could see his eyebrows, she could see the mask, and the light was probably coming down from the kitchen where she was kind of bathed in shadow. I don't think he saw her. I think he was looking her direction
Mm,
and was looking her way. But if you so one of the things I love is I used to be a pilot back in the day, and one of the rules as a VFR pilot, a visual flight reference pilot, is that at night you can't have like bright lights in your eyes before you go to fly. You
right.
need to give about 20 minutes for your eyes to adjust to the darkness. So if he was upstairs and the lights were on, and then he was walking down the stairs to go back out that sliding glass door, his eyes probably hadn't adjusted, hers had. And she saw what was going on. And then you add to that, like the adrenaline that must have been pumping through his veins. I mean, the guy just slaughtered 4 people, right?
That is true.
And so he's not in his right frame of mind at all. She's very aware because she even says she hears him, like she hears voice, right? She hears a voice be like, "Oh, don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you," or whatever it is that he says.
Right.
And so she's hyper aware, way more than he would be. Now, when it comes to a lineup, I don't know how you deal with the bushy eye issue.
I know. I mean,
Like you just shave your eyebrows before you go into court.
yeah,
Please identify the defendant. Well, I can't, Your Honor. I have nothing to
perfectly,
compare it to.
perfectly coiffed eyeliner. Like
Yeah, you just got to like
eyebrows.
get in there, go get him waxed.
Yeah, just call up the I don't know, the jail's esthetician. You know what I mean? Let me get these waxed real quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he just calls up Bubba downstairs. He's like, "Hey, I know you tried to shank me yesterday, but can you
But
just help me out?"
I heard mwah, like chef's kiss. You know, the way you groom these eyebrows. So could you hook me up, bro? Yeah, I'll give you
I'd
20
like the,
packs of
the
cigarettes.
Kardashian arch. That's all I'm looking for,
Exactly.
man.
I'll give you 20 packs of cigarettes. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. But the one thing I wanted to share with you guys, this is something I saw a little bit earlier that I wanted to share with you guys. This another piece of information. Don't know if this is entirely true, but it is an interesting perspective that I wanted to share with you guys here on the show. Now, this has to deal with Dylan, why she went back into her room, the why there was such a long time for her to call 911. So I just wanted to read this to you guys really quick. So they said the affidavit just said on the floor, it didn't state where on the floor it could have been, and they're talking about the knife sheath, of course.
Oh, okay.
They say, I know the person who made the call to 911, and he actually went in the house before the police showed up. He told my son where he saw her. So they're talking about Dylan here. So they said, didn't one of the housemates make the call? Did they think the kids were alive, just unconscious? That's what the caller stated, which is obviously something that we all know. We've all been wondering that big time, because we know that there was a phone call, and the phone call was about somebody passed out, not someone dead. Okay, it wasn't somebody, just a body on the ground. It was someone is unconscious. Somebody please get here. And this is the theory that I had in the very beginning. So this kind of echoes this theory. So the call was made from Dylan's phone, which is actually apparently true. But a male friend, also a fraternity brother, is the one who spoke to 911. Dylan actually fainted outside the front yard, so he took the phone. He had not been in the house yet, so that is why the initial 911 call stated that a person had passed out, because it was Dylan who passed out. At the time, he did not know what had happened inside the house. Now, moving on to this third panel here. And I also know that she was very confused about what she had seen and heard. I don't want to give too many personal details, but she suffers from PTSD due to some things that have happened to her in her childhood. So she has extreme nightmares and panic attacks, often at night. That's interesting information if this is true. She told the friend who made the 911 call that she thought she saw someone in a mask in their house, but wasn't 100% sure it wasn't a nightmare. That's why I feel so awful for her. I'm sure she will beat up herself for the rest of her life, but knowing her situation, and also they had been drinking that night, I 100% believe that she was in shock and just tried to talk herself out of what she had seen / heard. So when you see something like this, when you hear this, now, again, we don't know if this is entirely true, y'all. This is just from somebody, these chats, people get really creative, people start talking. So I take this with a very, very fine grain of salt, okay? But that theory alone says something, in my personal opinion. It could make sense. It could explain why she went in there and froze. PTSD is a very, very powerful thing, especially, and it can vary. It has varying degrees of intensity. When somebody sees something like this and they freeze, they can literally just freeze and be incapacitated, basically, for a very long period of time. So this could very well be what it is here too. What are your thoughts on this, Danny?
I'm just shocked because I had never seen that, and it supports my theory, right? My little speculative theory, that she really could not believe her own eyes, right? And that she had spent hours trying to rationalize what she had seen, and the fact that she has childhood trauma,
Yes.
and PTSD that results from that childhood trauma. I wouldn't doubt that she also probably sleepwalks. and doesn't realize she's doing it and probably hasn't exhibited it for a long time. It's actually, frankly, a very embarrassing condition because people have so many misconceptions about it. But that form of PTSD, if she was, I almost wouldn't doubt that she may have taken like a gummy, an edible THC gummy,
That's
or
what I was
some other
thinking
kind
too.
of intoxicant, and she doesn't want to admit it. She doesn't want to talk about it. And basically the prosecutors are saying, "Hey, look, we're not going to charge you for, taking something illegal, which it's illegal in the state of Idaho. We just want to know what you saw." And so when she felt finally comfortable to say that, she probably did. I mean, I'm not going to lie. If I was intoxicated in a legal jurisdiction or in a jurisdiction where it was illegal to partake, I probably wouldn't call the cops if I saw a crime because one, I can't guarantee that what I saw was accurate and correct, right? And this is going to cause
Right.
some problems at trial because was she able to determine what was real and what was fake at that moment? And then two, um, I don't want the cops to catch me, right? I
Right.
don't want to be caught. You're hyper paranoid at that point. And I mean everybody reacts differently obviously to the Mary Jane, but if that is your state of being and your thinking at the time, of course you're not going to call 911, right? You're going to stay scared, terrified in your room, lock the doors and just think, okay, the high is going to go away. The paranoia
Mhm.
is going to go away. I'm just going to wait for this trip to end. And then when I'm awake, I'll go and take care of things. Add to that PTSD, add to that a history of nightmares, add to that it's 4 a.m. and she had been drinking. All of those things combined all make sense to me,
Mhm.
but you would need all of those things combined. So we're not going to know for sure until she's up on the stand and she's frankly under cross examination.
True, and that's the one thing that could be very, very scary too, because there is there's room for reasonable doubt then,
Yep.
because she's sitting there going, "Okay, I saw bushy eyebrows. That's all I saw. I saw a guy in all black. It could be anybody," type of situation. Which we are going to go into that and talk about that very, very shortly. But just going back to the affidavit itself, okay. Of course we've all gotten this affidavit, we've all read through this. Some of us have obsessed over certain pages, some of us have obsessed over the entire doggone thing. Is this enough to really stick it to Bryan Kohberger? What are your thoughts?
It's
Just,
enough
just
it's
this
enough to
affidavit.
hold him and to prosecute. That's all you need. You need enough to hold and to prosecute and to go after discovery. That's going to be the next phase of this, right? The investigation's not over. There's still an entire discovery phase. They're going to pull records. They're going to pull chat logs. They're going to go and subpoena and pull all of his laptops, computers, all of his messaging for the past probably 5 to 10 years to see if he's developed a pattern or a habit or something that they can bring into court. That's the state's goal right now. The state is pretty dang certain they got the right guy, right? So they're going to push to try and convict him. As it is right now, it's not enough to convict, which they rarely are. Okay. This is up to the discretion of the DA at this point. Do I take what I have right now and risk, you know, potentially not finding anything, potentially getting egg on my face on this and going after this conviction and potentially, let's say he's innocent. Right now he's innocent. For all we know, the guy did nothing. Okay? Right now he's just suspected of doing something. So he's a suspect. And we need to figure out whether or not he actually did it. And that truth won't come out until he's at trial, which is the whole goal of trial, is to get to the bottom of the truth. And all of this, when you're an attorney and you're moving forward with a case, you're essentially taking each piece of evidence and treating it like a brick, right? Each piece of evidence is one brick to lay your foundation upon which you'll build a legal argument, and then you will, deliver and present your case to other people, right? You'll invite them into the home. You'll say, "Hey, look, here's all this." But each piece of evidence is a brick. And without each piece of evidence is valuable, but some pieces are more valuable than others. And that's where you get to the DNA evidence, right? That's very, very persuasive to people. If if he didn't do it, it's sure as heck a coincidence that, you know, there was some DNA found on this sheath. If he didn't do it, it sure is coincidental that there's this 4chan post talking about him, you know, arriving in the BFE of Pennsylvania, right? If he didn't do it, why was his cell phone pinging both before and after, only a couple hours after, driving around in that area, right? If
Yeah.
he didn't do it, all of these things are little pieces of evidence that build on top of each other. And those are really strong and persuasive pieces of evidence. There's going to be more that comes out in trial that fills in the gaps, right?
Hopefully.
And yeah. And then with criminal law, it's not quite as complex as civil law. In the to the degree that your structure that you put on top of that foundation is not very complicated. It's like a Lego block. Okay. It's just go boom, boom. Here's the law. Here's the statute. Here's how it's been interpreted. Now here are all the facts that we're laying it on top of. Whereas with civil law, there's some intricacy, right? You can be much more creative with how you go about the trial. Really, it's going to be up to the defense attorneys to get more and more complex and to introduce that reasonable doubt, like you were saying before, right? You want to hyper focus on those reasonable doubt issues. A perfect example of this is the O.J. Simpson trial. I 10 out of 10 would recommend you guys go rewatch it, watch the trial start to finish, and see the ways in which the defense attorneys are just fabulous at harping on those small, they seem like small details, right? Saying the N-word, even the N-word, that phrase came from that trial. But it doesn't seem at that time, that didn't seem like that big of a deal. But then when you harp on it and you really dig into it, it almost became the entire focus of the trial became racism and racial bias. And it introduced such a level of reasonable doubt that he was acquitted.
Interesting.
Whereas if the defense attorneys had not so excellently crafted those arguments and built on that foundation of evidence and been like, this is why, you know, what you've laid doesn't match what you're trying to put on top of this, right? You're trying to lay this legal argument on top that doesn't match any of your evidence. And as a matter of fact, let's pull out these pieces of evidence, right? And let's examine each and every single brick. There's different strategies on how to approach these cases, but fundamentally here, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough case for these defense attorneys.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting if they try to say if it don't fit, you must acquit.
Put the knife back in the sheath.
You know what I'm saying? Just bring, yeah, the knife is not getting in there, so it's not him, right?
It must not be him.
But it may not. It can't be. Now, of course, we're going to get into the sheath and the evidence and all that stuff here in just a second. But one thing I do have to ask is about this. Okay, they just had his first appearance in court. And he was already appointed a public defender. But what's interesting is I thought they don't appoint a public defender until after the first initial hearing. How did he already have his public defender? How did she already know that she was the one on the job before he even walked into his initial hearing in Idaho? That's the one piece that I'm still curious about. And a lot of people have asked about that too.
Well, I don't know how procedure works there. I thought that this was partially an arraignment.
Oh, okay. So it was an arraignment, but what's weird though is that she was already there. He shows up and he's like, "Yeah, I would like to have a public defender defending me," but she was already there. She was sitting right next to him. You see what I'm saying? And I thought that's usually appointed after the request, not before. He was still flying. He hadn't even taken off yet, and they were already saying that this defending attorney was going to be his public defender was, her name, her history, etc., and that she was already looking at the crime scene, doing all kinds of surveillance of the crime scene, reconstructing things, so on and so forth. But I thought that those are things that they don't appoint until after the first appearance in court. Am I correct on that, or am I completely off?
No, you're correct. It generally, I mean, this is such a legal answer, but it depends. Okay, so I've done 2 criminal defense cases. One of them was a possession charge, and in that case, my client had made their initial appearance, and they actually forgot to request a public defender. So they called me and they were like, "Hey, can I get your help?" And at the time, I didn't have time, so I messaged the judge and I was like, "Hey, my client would like to appoint a public defender. I was doing this pro bono." So they then appointed one. So my guess is that there's a procedural loophole in the state of Idaho that I'm unaware of, where you can basically outside of the courtroom, send a message to the DA, to the judge, and say, "Hey, this is going to require, I would like to request a public defender in advance of my arraignment." Because at the arraignment, you're pleading guilty, not guilty, right? And if the prosecutor had come to him with a really sweet deal and was planning on negotiating with him, he would have asked for a public defender at that time anyway. If he were sitting in jail, you can ask the judge for a public defender in advance of that hearing. It's not commonly done, though, to your point. And so I understand the confusion, because generally the only time that the judge has on his docket to hear your request is when you are in front of them, right? So they're just sitting there waiting. They're going through hundreds of cases a day on their docket. So when you come before them and you're like, "Not guilty, Your Honor, and also I'd like to request a public defender," that is generally the time in which you do that. In this case, in this situation, there's multiple jurisdictions. The judges are coordinating, the courts are coordinating, the FBI is coordinating, everybody's working together. And so it's like a well orchestrated performance at this point. Okay. As we get closer and closer and closer, obviously shit can hit the fan. Forgive my language, but
Oh, you're good.
yeah, I mean, it can hit the fan and then things get really psycho. A good example of this is like the Kyle Rittenhouse case, right? Where
Yeah.
there was all sorts of procedural issues that were coming up because they weren't following the procedure. But really what's happening right now is the DA is not being sneaky. There is no tricks, nothing going on, at least as of yet. And frankly, I think they're playing this straight. They're playing this as straight as you can. I think it was admirable that they kept their mouth shut to this point. They may have even, utilized some misdirection techniques by not saying that they were looking for that car until after they had already located the car, and little things like that, right? To try and throw him off the trail, to not spook him. Very clever, very well done. Now it's up to him and his public defender to fight this case and to introduce that reasonable doubt. I mean, I don't think the guy waived extradition, right? So
Yeah.
he's kind of put himself in the position where he's like, "Okay, I accept jurisdiction. All right, I'm not getting out of jail."
Why? Why? But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But why do you think he said? Why do you think he waived extradition so quickly? Why didn't he just go through the procedure of, especially if you think that you're not guilty, if you think you're innocent, why would you suddenly say, "Yeah, I'm just going to waive it. Let me get out there and deal with this"? I don't know. It just seems a bit odd to me.
So, I don't want to get your channel flagged, but
Sure.
today is the anniversary of a certain event that occurred. The defendants in those cases, you all know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We do.
Okay. So the defendants in those cases are still rotting in jail. They're still sitting in jail. Many of them have not had their initial hearings. This is 2 years later.
2 years.
That's a violation of their constitutional right to a speedy trial. Unfortunately, that happens a lot. Now, what he's saying is all right, chances are you have enough evidence to continue to hold me. Okay. And you could hold me for a really long time. And I really doubt that, any appeals court judge or any judge is going to release me because you violated my constitutional right to a speedy trial at this time, at this point in time. Because there's a million reasons you can reschedule. It's really just drawing it out forever, potentially, right? Like,
Mhm.
he doesn't even know what evidence they have against him. All he knows are the charges, which is all he has the right to know. So in his calculations, it's like, okay, yeah, I can sit in jail in Pennsylvania and wait for this extradition hearing and then lose, right? Likely lose because, again, I don't know what evidence they have. Or I can subject myself to Idaho jurisdiction and just go back and get it handled and taken care of as quickly as possible. So there is an innocent, if he is innocent, there's an innocence argument there to say, I didn't do crap, so go ahead and pull me out there and let's get this over with.
Gotcha.
It's very disruptive. I mean, if you know anyone who's been falsely accused of a crime,
Mhm.
anyone who's been held in jail for any period of time, you lose your job, you lose your livelihood, you lose your future to a great extent. You lose relationships. It's very hard to rebuild those things if the state can't prove their burden. And this is why, you really should all be looking at your DAs in your local counties, in your local jurisdictions, and make sure that you agree with their charging decisions and what they're doing on mass to your county. It has the most impact in your community you could ever have is when the state comes in and decides to take your body and put you in jail.
Interesting. Hey, the more you know, guys. Okay. So yeah, get on that. Now I see what you're saying though. And that makes sense why he would be quick to say, let me get out there quickly, let me get it over with, so on and so forth. I know that there's also theories of people thinking that maybe the quicker he gets out there, the quicker that law enforcement has to prove and pull up more evidence, and maybe
Yep.
given the fact the quicker he goes into trial, the quicker they can possibly fumble the ball.
Yep.
Now let's talk about this evidence, okay? Because at least in this affidavit, they talk about this K-bar knife sheath that has United States Marine Corps insignia on it, and an eagle or something like that stamped on the side. It's a leather sheath that was found allegedly right next to Madison's body in Madison's room alongside with Kaylee Goncalves. Now, my question to you is this. Obviously, there is the DNA on the button. That's where they were able to find the DNA of Bryan Kohberger in this button snap. Is the DNA and this knife sheath enough for him to be found guilty of these crimes in this trial?
Oh, on its own, absolutely not. Like I was saying before, right? You're building a foundation.
Mm.
There's certain pieces though that are more important than others. I don't think you can hang your hat on any single piece of evidence, right? Because if it was just the DNA, he could say, well, someone else, right? They could come up with an alternative theory. They don't need to. They don't need to. But a reasonable juror sitting in that courtroom could think, "Oh, wait a second. Huh. How did that DNA get there?" Right? Evidence, all the defense attorney would have to say is, "Look, evidence ends up in places all the time." Right? And it's not that far-fetched to think that this could have been someone who knew this guy who just didn't like him. There were a lot of people who came out and said horrible things about this guy, from his classmates to people who barely knew him, and tried to make him sound like a creep, when in reality he was just doing normal things normal people do. But in hindsight, with that bias, they're going to say things. And so, as if I was the defense attorney in that case, I would demolish the state if that was all they brought. They need to bring more than just that. They need to bring in his cell phone location. The fact that he turned on his cell phone on the way there, turned it off, and then turned it back on his way back home. Right? Guy probably is not great at directions. Needed his GPS clearly, right? Like
Probably.
little things like that. The fact that he
We
cleaned his
understand.
car.
From what we understand, he took the long way home. Also,
Yep.
he took the long way home to try to throw off the pattern and make it seem like he wasn't in that area and all of that. So yeah, eventually he's probably going, damn, I don't even know where I am. I need to turn this thing back on 30 some odd minutes later, for sure. And that's pretty crazy that all of that went down. But cellular data, the sheath, that's pretty decent stuff, right? But could they have the murder weapon but not even let us know? Or does that even make any sense? What are your thoughts?
I mean, they could certainly. I don't think.
Why would
I
they hold
think.
that back? That's the thing. That doesn't make any sense. I feel like that would be like them standing next to the elephant that they shot. You know what I mean? I just went hunting. I found this. Look, everybody, the knife. Right? Wouldn't
I
that be
mean,
the thing?
they could, but again, it comes back to biasing, and it also comes down to media attention. I think that this case, rightfully so, has garnered a lot of media attention. But it's one of those cases where the judge is extremely shy. And the courts out west, I don't know if it's necessarily this judge or this jurisdiction, because in the state of Utah, we're not allowed to live stream cases. And it's very difficult to even get recordings of cases. A great example of this is the Daybell case, right, where the judge decided not to allow media in that case at all. So I think it's more so a reluctance to really publicize the case more than they have to. They want this to be a very clean show. They want it to be very simple. They want to get in there. They want to convict the guy. They want to play it by the book. Um, I don't think they have the murder weapon though. I don't think they would announce it, right? At this point there's a gag order anyway. So basically anything that's not established in court is not going to be published to the media at this point. So it could be that too. It could be they have found it since, but because it hasn't been introduced in court and it's not in the court documents currently and it's not something that's been published by the court, then they can't talk about it.
Interesting. Now let's talk about the gag order. I'm glad you just mentioned that because I have that right here, right next to me. The gag order. Please explain to me why the judge decided to take this whole trial and try to stop any information to come from this trial to go out to the public. Why would the judge do something like that?
Well, we have 2 living witnesses, right? And these are key star witnesses. We don't know exactly what their testimony is going to be, but the FBI has a vested interest, and so does the DA, in keeping them alive. Okay, that's one thing. The more publicized this is, the more frenzy it creates. I mean, you have you have so many spurious cases developing as a result of this one case. The defamation case against the professor. You have businesses that may go out of business simply because he drove by there, right? What is it, Anne's Cafe or whatever? People get crazy over these cases. And when I say crazy, I mean they treat it like a living drama. And some courts feed off of that. Some courts are amicable to that, right? The Rittenhouse court, and some of them are necessary. So where the crime is attacking the public at large, you really do want to open that up to public scrutiny. It can be very healing for the community. A good example of that would be like the Eric Chauvin case, um, Kyle Rittenhouse, Daryl Brooks. All of these cases are really important for the community at large.
Mm-hmm.
This case is a little bit different because these were 4 college students who were targeted. It was a targeted murder, and it's you have to weigh sort of the balance of the balancing of interest for the DA and for the court in terms of how do I keep my evidence in this case clean and pure? How do I not prejudice a jury? How do I inform the public of necessary information that they need to know? And then how can I also, respect the wishes and needs of the surviving family members and protect my witnesses? All of these things are small, not small, but all of these things are factors that go into the court making its decision as to whether or not to produce a gag order. But the gag order specifically is on the state and on law enforcement. And I think that's wise given the initial reaction of family members, which I understand because they weren't very communicative with law enforcement. And law enforcement was smart to give them a little bit of information to see what they would do with it. Well, they immediately went and spilled it to the media. And there's certain information that you don't want going out to the media. You're building a case, okay? And everything that you build within that case has to kind of stay close to your chest until you know what you're going to bring. And then you give all that evidence over to the defense as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
There's 2 ways to try a case. Well, three ways. One is privately, right, within the confines of the sacred courtroom that should be held sacred. It's a scary place. That's where life and death decisions are being made, right? The other way to handle a court case is to make it public and to try the case in public. Perfect example would be the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case. That was a very public case.
It was a circus, crying out loud. Absolute circus.
But it should have been, right? Because even if it had come out that, yeah, Johnny Depp, this wasn't slanderous, right? This wasn't defamation, because there's some evidence that Johnny Depp may have been involved in these things. Even if that was the outcome and that's what the jury decided, didn't matter, because the rest of the world saw the case and they got to make their own decisions, right? So that is a publicly tried case. And then there's cases that are somewhere in between. Those cases that are somewhere in between would be like, what's a great example? The vast majority of cases actually are pretty down the line in between cases, where you want to kind of include the public to the extent that you're required to as a court, but you don't want it to be a circus, and you don't want to bring more attention to it than you have to. You want this to be a clean, straightforward case.
Alex Jones's defamation lawsuit.
That one should have been far more public,
and it was. It was,
but it wasn't, because Twitter. I'm sure that Twitter was sitting there blocking everything. I mean, Twitter and all the other media companies and all of the tech companies met together before they basically depersoned Alex Jones. They did that all in the same night. That case should have been way more publicized, way more public, because that is a terrifying case when it comes to free speech. But nobody wants to stand up and defend Alex Jones because they don't know the facts of the case. They don't understand why it's important, because it wasn't well publicized.
Interesting.
So
interesting for sure. So let's talk about this insanity. I know that they can't do an insanity plea in the state of Idaho. So what are the other chances of them being able to? I mean, what are their other what are their other choices here aside from, I don't know, reasonable doubt? I mean, what else do they have? The defense. What else do they have here?
I mean, I'm with you on that. I don't know. I don't know. I apologize. I can't even opine on it, because it's sort of like, what do you work with when you don't have that? I mean, you could argue at sentencing, for a merciful sentence. You could argue for, I don't know, a hospital stay. Maybe he's sick. Maybe he's just mentally ill, and that will play into his sentencing. But my understanding is they're going to go with the death penalty, and we're out here in the West, we're pretty death penalty heavy. We don't play games out here anymore.
It looks like the rest of the family is very much into it as well. They are all, at least the Goncalves family has been the most vocal. Obviously, they've been out in in these interviews on many media outlets, just speaking on behalf of course, trying to find justice for their daughter and for Madison as well. They all have been very like, hey, make him leave this planet. Let him leave, which is absolutely wild to me. Again, we see all this stuff. We see the evidence, or the lack, or the minimal amount of evidence that they actually have. And of course, that's the thing that for me, it's the burning question of, is it enough? Will this be enough to stick? I mean, obviously they still have time to dig through the scene of the crime, to go through his computer, to go through all of his stuff to get more stuff to stick onto him. But all they have right now is a knife sheath with a little bit of DNA and his cell phone data. That's all they have so far. I guess that's the burning question of, will that really be enough? And how will that play for the jury? Because to me, it seems like they could lean more towards reasonable doubt. I hate to say that. I don't even want to say that, y'all. But it makes me feel like they could really, if his lawyer is that good, they could probably convince the jury to sway a little bit, possibly. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's their job, and you should be swayed in favor of him being innocent right now. I mean, the state hasn't proven anything, to your point. I mean, it's like, it's sort of this is gonna be a crass example, and I kinda don't wanna be big screen. Share the screen with me so I feel less insecure about saying this, but
Sure.
it's sort of like, let's say you have sex with a woman, or you're going to have sex with a woman. You go on a date with this woman,
Okay.
and you pull out a condom. You go to open the condom, but she's like, "Nah, I don't really want to have sex right now." And you go, "Okay, no worry, boo. You have a good night. I'll make sure you get home." So you send her on her way. Okay. Later that evening, she's raped by someone who looks somewhat similar to you. You drive by the house as just pure coincidence later on in the day. Okay. You're just going out there, part of your regular routine. You go out there often. And, you had turned off your cell phone because she wasn't gonna have sex with you. And maybe you watched some porn, you went to bed, you woke up early, you're like hitting it hard, you're going about it the next day. You just so happen to drive by her house, like all of those things. And let's say that the rapist later on in that evening had used that same condom. So the wrapper is there. The wrapper has your DNA on it.
Right.
They can't find the condom. They can't find his DNA because he wore gloves. Right.
Yeah.
So that's why I say the presumption should be innocence for good reason at this point. And you're right, it is going to be a hard and heavy burden for them to meet, but the state needs to meet it. And there's a reason we want that burden to be so high, because we don't want you going to jail, right? For something you didn't do. You didn't rape your hypothetical, girlfriend or date, but you could be convicted if that was all we were looking at. And so that's why we need a lot more.
But then you also look at camera footage, security cams, etc., the data of the car circling around a whole bunch, the phone being turned off. I get it that a phone could die and then you got to charge it, but it doesn't take 30 some odd minutes for a phone to
Well,
turn.
what the hell is he doing out there in the middle of the night? That's what I want to know.
That's the other part too. He leaves at 2 something, almost 3 o'clock in the morning, goes out towards the area of the King Road, Kingside or King Road house. You know what I mean? There's just so many pieces that scream that he hit that this is the guy. To me, I still think this is 100% the guy. I understand that there is room for anything possible. Somebody could have stolen his DNA. Sure,
They
someone
could have stolen his phone and his car and gone out and done this too. I mean, that's certainly possible too.
that is a
I've
possibility. That's a possibility as well. But at the same time, when you see all the information that's being put out here, I don't know. And just given, I don't know, he just fits it too much. He fits it way, way, way too much, in my personal opinion. But
Well,
it'll
and
you see.
let's talk about reasonable doubt. It has to be reasonable, right? The scenario I came up with earlier, it's a stretch, right? It's not necessarily reasonable. And it's whether or not the jury is going to buy it. The jury is a very, very fickle group of individuals. There are cases where I think slam dunk, right? Clearly self-defense. Slam dunk. Guy's innocent. Slam dunk. Clearly he didn't do it. But then they get convicted. Innocent people are convicted all the time. I know people
That's
don't
true.
believe it, but it's absolutely true. Now, if you go into the jail and you ask people if you did it, 9 times out of 10, they'll say they didn't.
Absolutely.
But that being said, our system is designed to put a very, very high burden on the state. And I hope that they are correct in their suspicions here. And if they are correct, I hope that they're able to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. I hope they're very talented, very skilled. My guess is they're not, experts at these types of things, because I doubt that there's a ton of murders that go on in that town. But I hope that they're excellent in their craft and able to carry out their job.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. We'll see. I feel that maybe that they're still finding more. Hopefully, they're finding more information, finding more stuff here as well. Obviously, law enforcement is still digging. I just feel I feel that they still don't have the weapon. I think if this is our guy, obviously it's innocent until proven guilty. Obviously, but given the fact that he did that long road trip with his dad, I mean, that's ample time to throw something out the window and all that for sure. So real quick, because I got to wrap up here very shortly, I got some super chats that I want to get through. And of course, everybody, please give Danny on a whole lot of love, purple heart emojis and all that stuff in the chat. That would really mean a lot. Let's get into some of these super chats. Mimi, thank you so much for the 2 for the coral shirt. Thank you. Love y'all. Let's get into some more. Thank you, Jacqueline, for the $2 super sticker. Thank you so very much. I got a couple questions in here too and comments. So let me get that.
And just to be clear to the chat, I do think they got the right guy. I do think he did it.
But I understand that you're talking about in the law.
Yeah.
Law.
Just to be clear.
That makes no sense. No. You're just talking like you're talking law. And this is exactly why I brought you on. You know what I mean?
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much for coming on and doing that.
I was like, if you want a fun commentary like Zoo Morning Show, I can give you that too. But I had assumed you brought me on because you want my legal analysis, and that's it.
Legal analysis, solely that. And so if people have no problem with that, hey guys, I asked you to come on to break this down and warts and all. Whether we like it or not, this is the proof here. So, Jacqueline, again, thank you so much for the 2. Oh my God, Pascal, looking super fine in that red. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. She's right,
by the way.
Oh, thank you. This old thing, I really appreciate it. Charlie Miller, thank you so much for the 20. I believe the knife is buried. If PD police department can't find the knife, I guess. Can't the prosecutor have a harder? Wow.
Cut the second can't. So if PD can't find the knife, the prosecutor will have a harder
to task proving he did the crime and might have a slim chance of going free. I believe old Sparky is waiting for him. Yeah, I believe that we are at that point. Obviously, they're going to be searching for the DP. They're going to go for the DP for sure. That's without a shadow of a doubt. One family wants it. I'm sure all families are going to be agreeing to it as well. It will be very surprising if one was like, well, maybe not. But at the same time, this man he did a very, very unbelievably horrendous thing. So I wouldn't be surprised that he's facing DP right now. Danny?
Do you mind if we go over just 1 second? Because I was just thinking of something. The other reason he may be rushing to get out there is there's an old saying amongst the felons that I know. They would much rather be at state prison than county. They'd much rather be at county than local jail. And they'd much rather be at local jail than the local insane asylum. So, I mean, the conditions are very, very, very different. So if I had to be, waiting out my time for trial, I would much rather be in a place where I'm secure. I'm going to get 3 meals a day. I'm going to have a blanket. Maybe I have some, outside time. I'm safe. He's probably
solitary
thinking that through too, if he is guilty.
They're probably going to, some solitary time. It's not going to be, I won't have to worry about dropping the soap anywhere. So on.
Exactly.
That's probably what it is, because, for a fact, there's some guys in on the inside that are probably itching to get after this guy because of whatever reason. But Charity, thank you so much for the 10 pounds. Dylan could have panicked about reporting the wrong thing. So say what they're sure of. But if they're doubting memory, or they are doubting memory, they could be scared to say the wrong thing. Could just be my anxiety sympathizing. I sympathize with Dylan tremendously. I honestly think a combination of different things. I think it was, but mainly, the main thing real quick, it was pure anxiety, pure shock and not knowing what to do. When you see something like that and you're frightened that bad, and it's not like you're at a horror, like a haunted house or a horror movie, it's real life. You just never know what you're going to do. You might freeze completely and just sink to the ground and not move, trembling. You just never know. So I feel like never underestimate the power of pure unadulterated fear. But Danny, your thoughts?
No, I totally agree. And the other thing that I was just thinking of is, I almost called the cops on a neighbor because I didn't realize they had moved, and I just saw some strange guy walking through the house and like going in and out of the backyard. I'm like, what the heck's going on, right?
Mhm.
But instead of being a Karen, I actually went and investigated, and it turned out that I could see him reaching for tools and stuff, and I peeped in the window, and everything was cleaned out of the house. I was like, oh, he's here to mow the lawn. Turns out he was. He had a key. He went in and he put the key away. It could also be that it's normalcy bias. So she was probably thinking, oh, this is one of the friends, and everybody's going to be at me with the ski mask issue. Well, out here, it's snowing. Like, I'm wearing a turtleneck, even though my house is 72 degrees, because I was just out there shoveling snow, and wearing ski masks here is not uncommon. This occurred, I think they had just had their first snow, or like their second, right? It was cold, not that uncommon to see, right? We've gone through 2 years of masks. She was probably really confused. There was probably that element of normalcy bias. Something deep inside of her, though, was terrified. And she likely couldn't tell, is this just my PTSD, my fear? I don't want to like call the cops and have them come to my house and piss off all of my roommates for no reason. I don't know.
Yeah,
Just
I mean,
my thoughts.
no, you got a point. I mean, yeah, unfortunately, with that situation, on at least on Dylan's side, the possibilities are vast, right?
Right.
The many timelines for her and what really happened when she closed that door, or even if she closed that door, she may have just passed out right there. You never know. It's vast, definitely vast. Vicky K, thank you so much for the 5. So you're saying they don't, I guess, want to
They
convict?
don't convict. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, based on the evidence we have right now, it's not enough. They're going to bring in more. I strongly suspect they're going to bring in more.
I mean, I hope they do. I mean, shoot. Okay, so real quick, I know for a fact that they're coming back in this coming week, right? What should we expect next week?
So next week is going to be a scheduling hearing, I think. So they're just going to be looking at, how the case is going to proceed. So next week, you definitely want to tune in so that way you can get an idea of what's coming up, when the evidentiary hearings are going to occur. I doubt that they'll have an evidentiary hearing right then and there. It's mostly going to be, hey, counsel, when do you think you'll be ready to take this thing to trial? If there's any kind of misconduct or something going on while he's in jail, that would be the time for the defense attorney to bring that up. If there's any kind of complaint, that again would be the time to bring that up. So they're going to be doing a lot of scheduling. It's usually just procedural, not substantive.
Gotcha.
But it's going to be about a year before they get everything ready for trial.
Wow.
It's just how it is. You got to do voir dire. You have to go and get your jury set up. You have to schedule everything. I mean, so jury selection takes forever, right? They've got to actually figure out what the questions are all going to be. They're going to arrange all of that together. They're going to send out the questions to everybody. It's so funny because I've been asked to be a juror, to sit on a jury more times as an attorney than I ever did before, but because I'm an attorney, nobody wants me.
You can't do it, right?
And my husband's not a citizen, so it's hilarious because we always get these jury invites and we're like, we can't, sorry. But if you guys ever get an invite, go and serve on a jury. It's a ton of fun. And if you don't want to serve on a jury, just be equally racist and biased against everybody. Be super sexist, hate the police, hate Black people, hate everyone. You will not get on that jury. But I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying an immoral person who wouldn't want to serve on a jury could do that.
Just be a straight up bigot, okay, guys?
Basically, like you could be like, if they're like, hey, how do you feel about the police? I hate the police.
Wow.
I hate the police.
They'll be like,
How do you feel about Black people? You know what? I can't do it. I hate white people too. I hate everybody.
Yeah.
Hate everybody. And I'm pretty
me.
sure you'll be golden.
I just love me. Just go for that. You know what I mean?
I don't even love me. It's a projection on the world.
Right.
My hatred is a projection of my feelings about myself.
About your own self. Hey, thank you so much for becoming a member. Welcome to the family. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so very, very much. I really do appreciate it. Leela, thank you so much for the 10. Your thoughts about his parents knowing?
Oh, they know.
Let's talk about this, okay? Now, obviously, there's nothing that we have to prove this in a legal standpoint. So this is all theory and all speculative. But at the same time, Father flew out to Washington, jumped into a car with him, and drove cross country in that car that they were looking for. Okay. Do you think this is a Brian Laundrie situation where the family was starting to get involved? Do you think this was a family affair now?
Totally.
Really?
Totally.
Whoa, wait a second. Whoa. Hold up. Why? Why do you think that? That's what I want to know. Why?
I'll tell you why. So here's the thing. Let's see, when was my first cross country solo trip? 26? 26 years old. I packed up my car, drove cross country. Ain't nobody's flying out to drive with me. And I'm a woman, okay? I'm a 26-year-old girl and I'm freaking driving on my own, no problem, okay? You can't tell me how old is he? 28?
28. Mm-hmm.
You can't tell me that daddy is flying out there, willy-nilly to drive his son back at 28 years old and then putting him out in the woods in their house. There is a reason they locked down the house. There's a reason that they started investigating the home. They took SWAT level precautions to get into the home, meaning law enforcement also suspected that dad is in on it because they wouldn't be doing that. You know how fast drugs flush, man? I'm telling you, they wouldn't be doing that if they weren't worried about destruction of evidence. They knew. Now, how much his mommy knew? Probably not a lot, but dad definitely knew.
So you're thinking Papa Kohberger could be another Roberta Laundrie.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it too. You have a daughter. You have two daughters. One who's an actress.
I'm done.
No, think about it. You have two daughters. One who's an actress. One who's a psychologist. Okay. And then you have a son who's studying criminology. Just so happens that your son is accused of doing the exact play scene for scene what your daughter acted in, and then you have a psychologist daughter. I'm telling you, there is family manipulation going on in that family. Very smart family, but probably not super healthy. I'm just going to throw that out there. If you have an actor, a psychologist, and a criminologist PhD student in your family, probably not the most healthy. Just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting.
That's my hot take.
That's interesting. That's a hot take. I will take that. No, because I'm still trying to figure it out myself. Because why would he fly out and do that and then drive back? Obviously, I have so many questions, and a part of me is like, the wholesome from the heart. I'm going, okay, maybe he's thinking that this is an opportune time to spend some quality time with my son. You know what I mean? I don't get to see him very often. I'm proud of him kicking the habit and not doing heroin anymore and all that stuff. You know what I mean? And
bro, that's very, very generous of you. You know your son's a freaking crack addict or a freaking heroin addict. And what you do to your kid, if you do anything at all, you buy him a freaking plane ticket. You buy him a plane ticket there and back. I mean, was he going to drop out of school after this? Right? It's not he's moving cross country. If he was moving and they were moving his entire apartment, he's like, hey, dad, I can either pay $2,000 to someone to help me move, or you can come out here and help me lift boxes and help me move, this couch downstairs. In that case, it makes sense. I'm not buying it.
Interesting. Okay. No, and that's fair. There's a lot of people that have their speculations on that as well. That think that, hey, dad jumped on this, took the flight because he knew that his son did some dirty things.
I don't think he knew. I don't know if he knew beforehand.
So you think I got to fly in the studio right now?
No, it's okay. I can see you're doing battle with it. You can turn off the camera if you want.
Oh no, it's all good. But wait, say that last part again. I'm so sorry. Say that again.
I don't think that he knew flying out there. I think he discovered it. I think it was told to him by his son on the drive back.
Oh,
and I don't know if he knew to what extent his son did what he did. But I think his son probably was like, Dad, I effed up bad. Okay. I need your help. You remember that time where we were playing the game where you were like, hey, would I cover up a crime for my kid? Yeah. You know how you said you would. I need your help. And I think that on the drive back, they had a discussion. I think that he lied to his dad about the extent of what he did. And I think dad was like, just don't tell mom, we'll take care of it. We'll figure it out when we get there. We'll find an attorney. It's all going to be okay. Okay, well, what should I do with this knife? Freaking get rid of it. Why do you still have it? I wouldn't be surprised if dad didn't help him clean out the car.
It is interesting when you think about the fact that he was cleaning the car with this is the information that we're getting now as of this morning. He had surgical gloves on. He was washing out his car. He was washing out his car in the driveway of his house. I mean, wouldn't the parents be like, honey, why are you wearing dish gloves while washing the car? Like, are you that OCD now? You see what I'm saying?
Maybe he's worried about the kung flu, man. He's
I mean, I don't know.
maybe that's it. That's why I'm not buying it. I'm not freaking buying it.
Interesting. Okay, well, Aaron Kathleen, thank you so much for the $10 super sticker. I do appreciate it. Lisa Crisp, $2. Thank you so much. Christina Randall found a great 3D layout of the home. I'll take a look at that soon enough. Honey Badger, thank you so much for the 2. Fly. Thank you, Danny, for your insight tonight. Yes, thank you so much for your information, your thoughts on all this, for sure. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. We got some more super chats here. They're coming in. But interesting, the dad. Wow. That just makes things thicker than a snicker. Leela, thank you so much for the 5. Yes, and I was bashed because I said I believed his parents. No. There it is. Yeah, because some people are going like, let the parents, grieve, or let the parents deal with this and all that, blah, blah, blah. But there still is room to think that maybe at least Papa
There's
knew.
no way. There's just no way they didn't suspect something. I'm telling you, like there's the difference between having a weird child and having a psychopathic child.
Yeah.
Okay? There's no way that they didn't know, and it doesn't surprise me at all that his sister is a psychologist. Generally, people who proceed in those who go down those career paths, so like it's a very fine line between genius and crazy, and I totally get it. There's a lot of nuts on my family tree, man. Okay. I'm just telling you, and you'll see it with Ben Shapiro too. What was it? His uncle or his grandfather had schizophrenia. My sister had schizophrenia. And I ended up becoming an attorney, and everyone in my family is an aerospace engineer, except for my mom, who does psychology and speaking, right? So I'm telling you, in these families, there's someone in chat right now who knows what I'm talking about. In these families, that kid who you have to watch, and you're like, wouldn't surprise me if he killed somebody.
Gotcha. Yeah. There are some. Yeah, we all have that one. We all have that one that we just kind of look with an inquisitive eye. You know what I mean? Sure. Charity, thank you so much for the £2. This is to you. I think you are fantastic and loved hearing from you. So
thank you. Go check out my channel, Danny on Direct. Let me grift. Go check out my channel. Go subscribe. I'm a brand new YouTuber. I started just in November after my failed election attempt. And I thought it was important to keep my voice going and keep speaking the truth and holding people accountable. So that's what I do on my channel. Come check me out.
Yes. And I will be showing you guys her YouTube channel at the very end of the show for sure. But thank you so much for the plug again. Lisa Mitchell, thank you so much for the 5. Don't think the dad knew. What would be purpose of driving cross country only to be extradited back? Mr. Pascal, did you notice BK has Yin's Sampiku eyes? I don't know what that is. But as far as driving across country to be expedited back, yeah. I mean, obviously he was hoping to get away with it. He was clearly hoping to stay out here in these wilderness streets for as long as he could in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. What are your thoughts, Danny?
Like I said, I don't think dad knew until he actually got out there. I think son called him, like, Dad, I need your help with something. Like, I want to spend time together. I need to talk to you. And this is serious. let's take a drive together. I got to tell you what's going on in my life. And like, I need time with you. Then dad gets out there thinking, oh, we're going to spend a, father son trip together. Nice little road trip. It'll be fun. And then son drops it on him and he's like, hey dad, can we trot? Can we have a little chat? I would be interested to know when the plane ticket was bought.
I'd like to know that too. From my understanding, they said that the trip was planned before this happened. But then again, he could have been. I feel like this was a planned attack. I mean, he clearly was driving around for months, checking, surveilling the area, circling around. He was becoming very acquainted with that neighborhood, the side streets, I'm sure, all that stuff. He was doing his recon work, for crying out loud. He put in work to find out. That's just my theory.
Maybe dad doesn't know. That does change the analysis a bit, because if it was planned, maybe he was really good at hiding it and dad had no idea. It's certainly possible.
JW said plane ticket was bought in August, I think. So if that was that far back, you never know.
Yep.
He probably knew that he was going to have to drive, maybe, or he knew he was going to do this cross-country trip anyway. So maybe he was like, hey, let me just, I don't know, strike while the iron is, I don't know. It's so strange.
Let's take advantage of it. Yeah, no, that may have started the clock for him.
Yeah. That might have been it for sure. Charlie Miller, thank you so much for the 2. I think the mother was left in the dark, no doubt. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think Mama Kohberger has no earthly clue. But I do think maybe BK said something to Papa Kohberger, and he said, yo, Pops, you're right. He may have had a conversation. You got a long drive back home where you're both in a small little, in a small car, driving hours on end, going back home. There's plenty of time to talk about something and confess on something.
Maybe because I'm not a psychopath, I couldn't do it. Like, I'm great as an attorney at keeping all of my clients' secrets. Like, I'm a black hole of knowledge. As soon as you tell me something, it's going to go away and I will never, ever reveal it. Okay. But when it comes to me and something I've done, I have this like compulsion to confess.
Right.
Even though I know it's bad for me, I just can't help it. Like, the stress and anxiety is just too high. And the relief you feel when you finally confess what you've done is immeasurable. And so I don't know, man.
Yes.
I don't know.
No, you ain't wrong. You are not wrong with that. I'd be like, like before he lands, like, just,
oh Dad, help me.
Just verbal diarrhea. I did this thing and I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Just turn me in, Dad. Just turn me in. It'd be a wrap, right? So,
but I'm not a cheater. I could never cheat for that very reason. And I know that there are cheaters out there who cheat consistently throughout their 30-year marriage, never a word to anyone. And they carry on like full double lives. So I don't know to what extent having a second marriage is akin to murdering 4 people, but I feel like if those people can keep that level of secrecy, maybe he could. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy. But Danny, I do appreciate you coming on and chopping it up with me and the rest of the family, and just giving us your 2 cents, your legal thoughts on everything, explaining a little bit more of this. I got one more super chat really, really quick, and then I got to wrap up, guys. I'm sorry. But Sleuth Investigates, thank you so much for the 5. When was Kaylee going back home for Thanksgiving? Something tells me Bryan knew she was going to go back home, and that's why she was the target. I don't know about all that. We've only heard speculation and rumors about pings matching Kaylee and Madison's cell phone pings as well, but that's not entirely solid. It doesn't say that in the affidavit that we know of, and that could have been some stuff that was redacted as well. But at the same time, there's been so many rumors, so many pieces of information that we've been hearing that's just been wrong, made up, fabricated BS. So as far as that goes, I'm waiting to see what they say, what law enforcement comes out with as far as more information within the stalking side of things. They say that he was surveying the girls for months, but they didn't go into great detail about it. So I'm waiting for that as well. But again, Danny, thank you so much for being on. I really do appreciate it. Again, everybody, I want you guys to go and check out her YouTube channel, please. Danny on Direct, okay? Let's get it to 5,000 subscribers. Let's get her past 5,000 if you don't mind. All right. She just recently had the DUI guy on her show, so she has some really great people on her show, and she's obviously starting to bulk up this channel, doing more content. So be sure to go over there and check out her stuff. All right, that would be great. All right, but Danny, I do appreciate you coming on, being a part of the conversation. Thank you so very much, and you have a really great rest of your night. Enjoy your weekend. All right.
No. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And thank you, chat. Thank you for having me on. And sorry, I wasn't looking at the chat too much tonight because I don't have my glasses on. So,
you're good.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on, especially so cold, right? Like we were basically introduced to each other and that was it. And that was it. And here we are. So thank you, man. I really appreciate you taking the chance on me. Have a good one.
Talk to you soon. Bye. All right, guys. Well, that is the show. I appreciate you all coming on and being a part of the conversation. It really does mean a lot. There's a lot going on here. Okay. Let me turn that down. There's a lot going on here. There's this doggone fly in my studio, and it's bothering the hell out of me. Okay. That I don't know. Maybe it just thinks I'm sweet or something. I don't know. Maybe I smell good, but it's in my face. You see that? You see that, guys? Anyway, guys, I appreciate all y'all for being here. It really does mean a lot. I wanted to get you guys somebody who is very well versed in the world of law to give us a better understanding of what to expect. We still have a lot of questions, a lot of conversation that we need to have that needs to be conducted here surrounding the trial and what to expect. It looks like maybe in a year from now, which is still absolutely crazy. But again, I appreciate you guys so much for being on here. It really does mean a lot. You guys have been amazing. All right. Subliminal. So anyway, guys, be sure to go and follow her on her YouTube channel. It is Danny on Direct. Again, let me show it to you guys one more again. There it is. Okay. Go check her out. Go consume some of her content and all that, and let her know that I sent you. Okay, guys. So anyway, I appreciate everybody. You guys have been amazing. Have a great rest of your night. Make it positive. Make it amazing. It's time to get going. Before you do, though, don't forget to hit that like button down below. Crush it. Make it scream out your doggone name. And do not forget to do this one small thing. Hit the subscribe button, baby. You know, for a fact, your boy's working hard out here in these streets to give you the best party on YouTube, which is The Pascal Show. It's time to get going. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. This is The Pascal Show. Bye.